Miss me? Beyond the Plate is back with Season 2. Hey everyone, this is Kappy, and you're listening to Beyond the Plate, a podcast where I sit down in person with the world's culinary elite to explore their journey into the industry and the social impact they have made in their community. Every episode, we share inspiring stories of what it means to be in today's hospitality industry. Season 2, we recorded live from the 17th Annual Food Network and Cooking Channel South Beach Wine and Food Festival in Miami, Florida, at the Lowe's Miami Beach Hotel. This festival is a benefit for the Chaplin School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at Florida International University, a place near and dear to my heart. Here's what this festival means to me. It was actually my first full-time job when I graduated from school. Yes, I am an alumni of FIU. I've been to 15 of the 17 festivals, so I've seen this from different points of view. My first year, I was a student volunteer at FIU, and then I was hired full-time by Brian Schrager, the founder and festival director, who you'll hear more about in this episode. And then I met Rachel Ray, amongst many other incredible chefs, wound up moving from Miami to New York, in which I went back to the festival as a consultant for a year. And then I started coming back with Rachel Ray. And then this year I recorded the podcast down there. So I've seen this festival from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different points of view or so. But before we talk about Season 2, I want to take a minute to thank you all for Season 1. I want to do a little flashback here because we've had some amazing guests, from Rachel Ray to Andrew Zimmern to Rich Melman, the incredible restaurateur here in Chicago, to Scott Conant and Eric Repair and Alice Waters, and I could go on and on. But we also did some live podcasts at Soho House here in Chicago, one as a bonus episode with Chef Tony Mantuano and another one with Gail Simmons. Beyond the Plate was named one of Radio Public's standout food shows of 2017. Thank you very much. But who can forget when we kicked off the season with none other than Rachel Ray, one of the hardest working women in the business.
I think if you're happy and proud of where you come from, you are fearless in where you're going, because the worst thing that can happen is you go back to who you were.
Or when Andrew Zimmern shared which place in his travels has influenced his life the most.
Botswana. I just changed the most there in some really big ways. Since that time when I came home, I'm the greenest son of a bitch. I am greener than the Jolly Green Giant.
Or Chef Michael Solomonoff from Philadelphia, talking about hospitality.
You know, you can't walk down the block in our city without seeing somebody that needs help. And we preach hospitality on every single level. So Steve and a couple of people from Broad Street came up with the idea of opening this restaurant that was reliant on the backs of this chicken that is food waste, right?
Or it doesn't get much better than sitting with Chef Eric Repair in the office at his restaurant in New York City. And when I asked him what 3 words his line cooks would say about him,
that's a good question. We should bring one now and put him on the spot and say 3 words about Chef Repair.
Ashley, can you send me a line cook that worked with us for at least a year or 2? Someone at the level of Saucier.
And I can't forget the time I sat with Chef Massimo Bottura, who once had the #1 restaurant in the world. He looked at me in the eyes and said,
"You know, you have a face that reminds me of burger."
Come on!
Laura.
Come on! Cheeseburger, ravioli!
Or the incredible Alice Waters, talking to me about what it's like being called a pioneer.
I don't really feel like a pioneer because I feel like these ideas have really been around since the beginning of civilization. The idea of taking care of the land, the idea of eating together, the idea of celebrating the harvest.
And there was no better way to close out Season 1 than with the incredible Chef Jose Andres.
I don't do it sometimes to fulfill other people's dreams, but to fulfill my own dreams. And if you do things to fulfill your dreams and you do it with heart and love, eventually it happens that you also fulfill other people's dreams.
On Season 2, we sat with more of the industry's best. Here's a little teaser of what we have in store. We sat with Trisha Yearwood in her hotel room at the Lowe's Hotel. She shared what she's craving when she's not eating Southern food.
Mexican food. I like all food really, but I mean, I love Italian food. I love Mexican food. I like spicy, so I'll tend to kind of gravitate toward that.
And Guy Fieri, we toasted with champagne.
Cheers. I drank my champagne, he didn't. And
we went live with Giada De Laurentiis while thousands of people around the world watched on Facebook Live. I may have gotten a little nervous, but all was well in the end.
You're a great interviewer, very calm and collected, and like you move it on to the next very, very seamlessly.
And by the way, to the person who commented on Facebook Live that Mr. Apple computer needs a tan, thanks. You made my wife's day. Anyhow, you're in for a treat this season. And I want to give a couple words to our partners/sponsors for this season 2 of Beyond the Plate. So there's a few names you'll be hearing throughout this season. 1, to our presenting sponsor, Martin's Famous Potato Rolls. Thank you for your commitment. I'm a true fan of your product as it makes any burger better. 2, to Sir Kensington's Condiments. Again, I'm a true fan of your product, and I can't wait to share more of what and how I use. And to the National Mango Board, thank you. My wife is a huge mango fan and sends me on runs to the grocery store often to pick up mangoes for her. And to Isle 8 by Flavor Gallery, thank you for supplying our guests with hats and t-shirts. And to all of our sponsors, I look forward to sharing more with our listeners about your products and how you all give back to your community. Some general housekeeping to go through. You can expect a similar format to Season 1 with Beyond the Plate. We'll be launching our episodes every Wednesday morning. We'll stay true to our shorter recipe read segments that we like to call Just the Plate, doing those every other week. And we will be doing some bonus episodes when there happens to be a 5th Wednesday in the month. Why listen and subscribe to Beyond the Plate? I truly believe that we are providing a platform for chefs to share an insightful story of how they got into the industry and how they give back to the community. They all give in such a huge way, and I hear these stories day in and day out, and I think they need to be told. A lot of these chefs are known for what they put on a plate, and people come in and out of their restaurants, but beyond that, there's so much more they do for the community. And I'm excited for you all to hear how each of the people we've interviewed gives back to their community. We've also received a lot of praise from people in and out of the industry. I've received multiple messages from people who said they got teary-eyed taking the subway in New York City listening to the Michael Solomonoff episode. If you haven't checked that one out, I highly encourage you to do so. I've heard from people who work directly in the food industry and from people who work outside of the food industry. I've heard from culinary students that are inspired by messages that these chefs are giving. And I've also heard from business owners that have nothing to do with food. One of them owns a boutique in Atlanta, and she wrote saying she literally sat in her car on her way to work, finishing an episode, and it inspired her to give back more to her community. And I think that's what it's about. So thank you all for listening. And if you could tell one person to listen to this episode who will enjoy it, please do us a favor and do that. Before we get going, I need to give a big thank you to those who helped me, because without them, there's zero chance I would be able to do this incredible project. A big thank you to Ian Cohen. A big thank you to Joel Yeaton. A big thank you to Sean Petrosian. And a big thank you to Mike Krentzman from Red Summit Productions, who came down to Miami to video our Facebook Lives that we did. So without further ado, while we're excited for our big opener when we start going beyond the plate with some of the biggest and the best in the food industry, there's one guy all of you may not know, but all of the festival guests definitely know. It's Brian Schrager. We went live with Lee on Facebook, so check out the Beyond the Plate Facebook page to see that full interview. Lee's going to set the stage for us because, after all, if it weren't for him, there's no South Beach Wine and Food Festival. He's the Senior Vice President of Communications and Corporate Social Responsibility at Southern Glazer's Wine and Spirits. I have a personal connection to Lee. He hired me out of college. It was my first full-time job. I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for Lee. He created both the Food Network and Cooking Channel South Beach and New York City Wine and Food Festivals, which together have raised more than $37 million for charity. He's the author of 3 cookbooks, and his philanthropic endeavors span very far and very wide. So please enjoy this conversation with Lee Schrager. And starting March 7th, we go beyond the plate for Season 2 with Giada De Laurentiis. We're here live at the Food Network and Cooking Channel South Beach Wine and Food Festival at the Lowe's Miami Beach Hotel, and we're going to get right into it. Lee?
Andrew, Kappy, as we used to call you. Do they still call you that?
They do.
Oh.
So this is your baby.
Well, you were my baby.
Yes, I was baby.
Yes, you were one of my babies. So it's really, I'm proud to see what you've done.
Thank you. I want to rattle some of this stuff off because it's extremely impressive. It's a 17th festival. It's raised more than $26 million for the Chaplin School of Hospitality Management at Florida International University. You have more than 90 events here this week, more than 350 chefs, winemakers, spirits producers, celebrities, and culinary personalities.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never seems like a lot until you hear it like that.
Right.
I never look at it like that, because if you did, it'd be really overwhelming. So I take day by day. So, this morning I got up and I looked at my day today. I don't look at Saturday or Sunday, because if you do, you can never stay focused. I only look at a day at a time. Really the truth.
You also function on minimal sleep, because I know I was leaving an event after midnight last night and you were still sitting down at a table having conversations.
Very unusual for me. I mean, the festival is one of the few times of the year, the New York and South Beach festivals, when I am up past or out past 11 or 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
So for me to roll in here at like 1:30, I was hungry last night. I ate very little. But 1:30 for me is like, 1:30 because I get up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock. So it was a long night.
Yeah, I'm sure. So this is random, but I'm switching gears here really quick. I laugh when people who are like in their 20s tell me that it's too late to change careers. And people are maybe wondering, like, where are you going with this? And I say this because you kind of created what you're doing for yourself when you were around 40 years old. And you were working in a hotel and you wrote a letter to the owners of what was Southern Wine at the time, now Southern Glazers, basically writing your job description. I heard the story when you spoke at FIU and I was a student.
As you said, I mean, I've really only had 2 jobs in my career. I spent 20 years with Intercontinental Hotel, and then I've been at Southern Glazers almost 20 years. That's 40 years. I don't, I'm expecting there probably will not be a third trilogy for me. I'm expecting this will probably be it. But you're right. When I turned 40, I wrote, because when I turned 40, there were no emails. We didn't have I don't think we had cell phones. I hate this. I really sound so archaic, but I don't know that we had cell phones 18 years ago. But I remember sending a handwritten letter to Wayne Chaplin, who is the CEO of now Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits, and I had known him for years, and I knew his family, and I wrote him a letter, and I'd done work for him and events for him over the years, and I said, hey, I think that there's something I could do for you. I wrote him this letter, really forgot about it, and like weeks later, he called me and said, let's have breakfast, and we spoke, and he said, well, tell me what you think you can do, and I gave him some ideas, and he said, okay, great, I'll be in touch. Weeks went by, I forgot about it, and I got a phone call from somebody at the company, and they said, let's have lunch, and I had lunch, and at the end of lunch, he said, well, when are you starting? I'm like, starting what? He goes, well, Wayne said you're starting. I'm like, I have no job. He goes, you have a job. Wayne thinks you're starting, so you better get over here. And that was the beginning of it. And I really went to a company that had never had anyone doing special events, had no one doing marketing, had no one doing PR. I mean, it was a large privately held company. I mean, but when I joined Southern in 2000, they were in 6 states. They did $6 billion, and 20 years later, we're in 44 states, the Caribbean, Mexico. Privately held company doing significantly more than $6 billion today, and it was exciting. Although the company was 30 years old when I joined, or about 26 years old, I really got to be part of that big growth period. I'm not responsible for it, but I was part of it. And I really helped develop an image and a profile for the company that was incredibly philanthropic to begin with, and really helped direct them and guide them on, great corporate social responsibility and giving back. Things they always had done, they just didn't know what to do with it and how to take it to the next level.
So every city has a festival these days, and I remember working with you back in the early to mid 2000s. I feel like we used to get a call every single week from so-and-so in Anywheresville, USA, because people thought it was such a, we could do one of these in our city. What makes SoBe so special?
You're right. I mean, when we started, there was Aspen, there was a chili festival in Santa Fe. I don't think there was anything else. I really don't. And now today, every city, you name it, every county, has multiple. Every borough has a festival, and it's great. As I said, not everyone's into fashion, not everyone's into arts, everyone's into food, and it's great to see. I think why we've been so successful in both South Beach and New York City is 2 things. Location. I mean, this is one of the most beautiful beaches in the world at the middle of winter in most places in the country. So I think location had a lot to do with our success in both cities. New York, we're in the middle of October, when in Indian summer in New York City. So we build our festivals around the beautiful Atlantic Ocean or on top of Pier 92 with a backdrop of, the most beautiful backdrop in New York City, all those beautiful buildings. But I think what makes us really different besides for location is the programming. that we have that Food Network cooking channel, pop culture, personality, that Guy Fieri, the Rachel, the Giada, Bobby Flay, Tyler Florence, Emerald. And then we have Alain Ducasse and Jean Georges and Massimo Bottura and Ferran Adria and Joel Robuchon and Rene Redzepi. So there are very few festivals where at one point a Giada can be on a stage and a next stage over could be a Alain Ducasse or things like that. So I think it's really the programming and the mixture of programming that we do.
How do you make sure that stays fresh? I mean, I guess the food industry in general is ever evolving on a daily basis.
Well, it is. I mean, but, consumers still want the Rachel Ray Burger fashion, the Italians, whenever I think about changing something, I'm reminded that we sell, thousands of tickets. Yeah. So I think what's important to me is to keep it fresh by changing. Rachel's taking a break this year, but she'll come back and she'll have missed it. She'll have fresh ideas for next year. And Guy brought a new energy to it this year.
Guy brings a new energy
to everything. I mean, he can walk into this room and he brings a new and different energy. Yeah. So, it's important for me to keep it fresh, for me to stay motivated. I never want to come in here and not love what I do.
Right.
And, I think every day it's not a matter of just loving what you do, it's doing what you love. And that's really important for me. And remembering how you got there. I think for me, I have to remember how I got there.
And I truly believe that from you too, because I'll run into you. Last night, we ran into each other at the Italian event and you're like, great event, isn't it? Did you try this? How about that, chef? And it's like, you don't make that stuff up. Like, you're really enjoying what has been crafted. I have to.
I mean, listen, I go to as many events as I can. Not as many as I used to because you just can't move around the city the same way. But
well, we always joked about getting you like a helicopter to take you from event
or a magic carpet or a pogo stick or something like that or a moped. I get to go to less and less events.
Vespa sponsor.
I wish Vespa would sponsor. But we had Emerald doing a clam bake in Fort Lauderdale last night. We had a dinner on Brickell Avenue that I just can't leave the beach. You can't go 4 blocks in traffic here. So I need to stay where I can see a mass amount of chefs, like at the tent. Right. I could see 40 chefs rather than driving an hour to go to a Shabbat dinner or a kosher dinner up in Bal Harbor, where it would take me an hour and a half each way, and I see 3 great chefs. So I got to think about where I could. Yeah, that was amazing.
That dinner looked incredible.
Oh my God, the menu was killer.
I know firsthand you get pitched. It's got to be at least hundreds of chefs every year for your festivals. Has there ever been a chef that you had turned down that you regret turning down?
No. I mean, Bethany Frankel. Years ago, Bethany Frankel used to email me. Bethany, I remember, she used to have an email called Bethany Bakes at AOL. And she used to always email me and say, or come, and she used to deliver food to my house. And she was delivering healthy food, I guess, at the time. And she always said, oh, I want to be part of the festival. I'm like, really? And I never paid her the time of day. And of course, then she went on to have Skinny Girl, and she still did the festival. She was very good. For me, it's not a matter of liking or not liking somebody, or there are plenty. I don't eat sushi. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a sushi event. I'm not a big taco fan, but taco is one of our great events. So I don't, you can tell what I love if you look at the early festivals, the Burger Bash, the Barbecue, the fried chicken event, breakfast events. I mean, I love, that's my type of food. But again, we're not catering to me. I'm not buying tickets. I got to sell 60,000 tickets, and
60,000 tickets.
We ticket 60,000 people. So for me, I got to think of things that do I want a vegan dinner? No, I couldn't think of anything I'd rather do less than go to a vegan dinner. But guess what?
Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah, but we had a vegan dinner last night that sold out. We have a Jean Georges vegetable lunch. We're having a Syrian women dinner tomorrow night with Alon Shai and Ingrid Hoffman in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, I wish I can go up to that. I love this whole group of Syrian women who are cooking. It's so amazing.
That's probably going to be delicious.
The food, the menu looked so amazing.
I usually kind of close with this, but I almost want to get into it now. A big part of this podcast, Beyond the Plate, is social impact and community work with chefs, because as you know, they're all so unique in how they give back to the community. But with you, it's festivals and it's different beneficiaries for South Beach, for New York, not to mention boards you serve on and the LGBTQ community. Can you share a little bit about just open the platform here for people. I don't think people realize what this festival does.
Well, what the festival does is we eat, we drink, and we educate. In this sense, raising money for education. So I grew up really simply. I grew up in a really lower class, middle class family on Long Island, very humbly. We worked hard. No one gave us anything. And, but we did give back, and that was important. Even going to Hebrew school, we worked after hours selling matzah at Passover, at early ages doing things like that. Yeah. And it was kind of always, my parents really inbred upon us the benefits of giving back.
You created this model for the festival, though, with South Beach and giving back to FIU, and with New York and giving back to Share Our Strength and Food Bank, which to this day, people say, how much money does it make? And I was like, oh, they raised $26 million and it all goes back towards the school. And everyone's like, wait, what?
No, and you know the saddest part about that, it's so often I'll meet a chef, there are chefs who I'm friendly with who said, I'm not coming down there. It's just, you're getting rich off it and the Southern, I'm like, believe me, I'm not getting rich off this. And believe me, Southern Glazers doesn't need whatever money we're making, but it is successful. It's successful, but it's not successful. It didn't happen on its own. I mean, this success, you were part of it. You saw it. I mean, we built this from nothing.
Yeah.
We had a dream and we believed in it and we had people who cared about it. And that's how it got to where it is. No one gave us anything.
Yeah.
We didn't have a title sponsor. We didn't have a presenting sponsor. I didn't know any chefs. I mean, I didn't have access to the people that have access today. And I knocked on doors and I believed in it and I lived it. And sooner or later, people caught on and believed that what we were doing.
Plenty of AOL accounts we reached out to.
Absolutely. Before, in the early days when we didn't have social media, you couldn't get that Martin Yan phone number. You had to work for 3 days to find out who represented Martin Yan. Now everything's so so easy. The festivals were created in the sense of giving back.
Yeah.
Southern Glazers is all about giving back in the communities that we do business in, and that's why these festivals are created, to give back. Education here and hunger in New York.
Yeah. Well, so what advice would you give about community engagement to, there's hundreds of FIU student volunteers here?
Well, you know it. You were an FIU student. You were an intern. You were one of my early interns, and I think I find it very frustrating to go to that school or to speak to people who don't get engaged in this festival. I went to FIU. I didn't graduate. I have no college degree. But if I went to FIU and there was something like a festival where I had access to meet these people, access to cook along and do the mise en place for a Michael White or for a April Bloomfeld, I would have paid to do that. And then you have students today who just don't want to participate and they're too busy or they don't want to give up a weekend. I'm like, you're crazy.
Yeah, that changed my whole education.
It changed a lot of, you can get anything out of this festival. I mean, when I look at you, what you did and what the business that you built and then go working for Rachel and Yummo and being part of Rachel's success from the get-go and now what you're doing, that's what this is all about. So I travel all over the world and I'm always amazed when I travel and I'll go to a hotel and I'll check in. They say, oh, Mr. Schrager, we were at FIU.
Oh.
For the students who put something in, you get something out. No one's going to, as it goes back to what my dad always says, you're not going to, if you don't give, you don't get. And if the students don't give, they're not going to get, and they shouldn't get. I mean, there's no free ride.
You eat well, you travel well. What's the one restaurant that you've been dying to go to you haven't been to? You've been to all of them.
My days of rushing to a restaurant, it used to be when we travel, that I used to have 10 reservations. If we were going to Italy or wherever it was, I had breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I had, you remember I used to have interns map out, where I should eat or look at the sites. I mean, I travel now and I don't make any reservations. I mean, I am happy to miss a meal, happy to stay home, or I'm happy to go out and have street food. I mean, I love, I can eat street food in India or in Thailand or in Israel. I mean, to me, there's nothing better. You want to learn about the food in the city? Eat street food. You want to learn about the food in a small town? Ask the driver. You want to learn about where to get the best fried chicken? Ask the mail person.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, I still do it today. I never go to a city where I don't ask an Uber driver or Lyft driver who has the best breakfast, and I always go.
Yeah. So but you always have your finger on the pulse in the industry. Are there any chefs that you have your eye on that you would like to have down? Whether just for the festival or just in general?
Yeah, I guess, I guess the question is there anybody who I've wanted at the festival who I haven't had? No. Honestly, I mean, there's nobody. If you look at Rene Redzepi, he's been down here. If you look at Daniel Hume from 11 Madison Park, he's done the festival. If you look at Ferran Adria, we honored him at this festival. You look at Massimo Bottura, he was down here last year and he'll be at New York this fall. You look at Yotam Adelenge, I mean, we've had him. I mean, if I can connect with them, I can normally get them. If their schedule works, we can get it.
For sure. You've seen chefs go from, since we started the festival over 15 years, you've seen chefs go from 0 to 60
Well, more importantly, I've seen chefs go from 60 to 0. And I think that's more relevant today. But
do you think TV's changed that? Or how? I mean, you have Food Network here.
Of course. I mean, if you look at, TV, Food Network, made this food. So I don't care what anyone says, and I'm not saying it because they're the presenting sponsor of our festivals, but Food Network, we rode the wave of success of the Food Network. I mean, I watched that Food Network when they were open, when they first started, and I watched every show. I remember the first time that I saw Paula Deen. I remember the first time when I saw Rachel on TV, and those Tyler Florence in the early days, and Michael Chiarello. I mean, those are, and I made a point. We wouldn't have Celebrity Chef today without the Food Network. They gave these chefs, or personalities, a lot of them weren't even chefs, they gave them the platform. If you look at when, my growing up, it was Wolfgang Puck, and he never got TV because people couldn't understand him on TV, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But he's an amazing talent, and still today, Wolfgang's one of those chefs who wants to be in a kitchen still.
Yeah.
Very unique.
Wait, what would you be doing if you weren't doing this?
What would I be doing? I'd probably be a waiter.
Yeah?
Yep.
You still love the buzz of the industry.
My best job I ever had was being a waiter at TGI Fridays. I loved it.
Really?
Yeah, my best job.
Long Island?
No, the first one here in Fort Lauderdale. The first one outside of New York City on Commercial Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale. I was in school. I was going to FIU in the mornings, and I worked at TGI Fridays in the evening. And this is 40 years ago. 38 years ago.
When was the last time you were at a Fridays for some
At
Jack
an
Daniel's
airport.
chicken strips?
No,
Not that I've been there.
But when I worked at Fridays, the potato skins, we came in, we baked the potatoes. When I was in the kitchen first, we scooped it. They were fresh. Now you go and everything's frozen. The chicken mushroom, MCM.
Right.
We used to, those were fresh. Now it's all frozen. Fridays was great food. So I would be a waiter.
Yeah.
You know what? I loved going in. I loved taking an order and not having to write it down. I could take an order. 40 years ago, I could go to a table of 12 people and didn't write anything down. I couldn't remember one thing today, but I love coming in, filling up my salt and peppers, cleaning up the dressing area, and then I love the buzz of a busy restaurant, and I love at the end of the night going out and spending all the money we made and getting drunk and going home and starting
doing
the next
it again
day.
the next day, yeah.
With no responsibility. So I think I'll end my career being a waiter.
You grew up on Long Island. Describe young Lee Schrager to us.
Well, as I've met, we were not privileged. I had a paper out. I delivered papers every morning, the Daily News, growing up. So before school, I delivered papers. After school, I delivered newsdays. And on weekends, I worked at a Chinese restaurant doing packing up Chinese food. When I was 12 and 13 years old, my dad in the winter used to drive me on my paper route to deliver the papers. And, we grew up with the work ethic that, my parents couldn't give it to us, and if we wanted it, we worked for it. I remember the Baldwin brothers lived in the next block, Alec Baldwin and his brothers, and I used to deliver papers for him. He lived in this really kind of rundown house. They never paid. They never, like every week on Friday, you'd go to collect. It was probably 40 cents.
Yeah.
That's really what it was, and 40, 50, I don't know how many years ago.
That's so funny.
And you go and then every 3 months, they'd give you like a $5 bill for all the money they made you. And every time I now see Alec Baldwin a lot, I always remind him that they owe me my last paycheck.
That's funny. Did you cook growing up?
I did cook. My mom was a good cook, and I was around good when my parents used to go on vacation 1 week a year growing up. We used to have a friend, my parents' friend, used to come and babysit for us and watch us. So 1 week a year, my parents went away. And a lady named Mrs. Catanzaro, we used to call her Mrs. C.
Yeah.
And she was a great Italian cook. And it was the first time I ever smelled fresh bread and yeast. And she really taught me how to make gnocchi and how to bake bread and how to make pizza. So my mom is a good cook, my Mrs. Cat. So we grew up with a love of really good food, simple food. Which is why today I still eat very simple. But my mom is a really good basic cook.
Do you still cook?
I do. I cook in the summer when we're out in Long Island because you can get it and it's fresh and good. It's hard. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. By the time I get home at 6, you're tired and it's easy to go out. And for me, I don't eat out because I'm hungry. I eat out because it's a way of life and I get to see people and try new things.
Yeah. Let's do a fun speed round. What did you have for dinner last night?
Nothing. It was we were at the Italian event, and I never eat it. I very seldom eat at our events, but I came home at 1 o'clock in the morning and ate a Kit Kat bar.
Favorite place to sit on a day off?
In our home in Coral Gables, we have a garden room where I love to sit and kind of look at the yard, and I can watch the dogs playing outside.
What's your next vacation destination?
We are going to London and Madrid in April, and we're going to go to California a week after this festival.
Nice. Last time you ate fast food?
Oh, God. Today. Yeah, I had a fried chicken sandwich. What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm a wrong person.
Where?
Yardbird. They delivered the food in the hospitality suite. Not fried food. I mean, not fast food, but yeah, I eat fried. I mean, I'm not a. You know, I love fried chicken, so it's hard for me to pass a Bojangles that I can't pass a Bojangles. And I was really upset when KFC ran out of chicken in London last week.
What is that?
I don't know, but I was like, really? I would have been really annoyed if they had no chicken
Seriously.
and you just got those, Parker House rolls, right?
What actor would you want to play Lee Schrager in a movie?
Well, I never thought about that. I don't know. I think probably Hugh Jackman.
Nice. All right, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure. It's great to be on your show, Andrew, and I can't tell you how proud I am to see what's become of you.
I appreciate
didn't have
it.
great faith that you were going to go far.
Well, you've taught me a lot. Honesty, persistence, authenticity. Always make sure there's a goal and objective in mind, and I use it all often. So thank you very much.
It is my pleasure.
What's next for Lee Brian Schrager Enterprises?
Lee Brian Schrager, today or in general?
Both.
Wow, I don't know. Next, I don't know. I want to enjoy life.
Yeah. Today. Enjoy life too.
I'd like to enjoy life today. I don't think I'll enjoy it as much today as I will after the festival, but as I said, you take one day at a time, and you got to love what you do and do what you love.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And since I love a good quote from Lee Schrager's parents, a quote from his dad: "If you don't give, you don't get." It doesn't get more simple than that. Thanks again to Lee Schrager. Find more on the South Beach Wine and Food Festival at sobwff.org. Join us for our Season 2 opener with Giada De Laurentiis. Find me and keep up to date with this podcast across all social media platforms at On Kappy's Plate or go to BeyondThePlatePodcast.com. Beyond the Plate is on Twitter at BT Plate Podcast and Facebook. Season 2 of Beyond the Plate is presented by Martin's Famous Potato Rolls. This episode was produced by myself, along with Ian Cohen, Joel Yeaton, Sean Petrosian. Big thank yous all around. Our music has been composed by Goldford. As always, a big special shout out to my wife, Katie. Please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on your listening site of choice. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Plate. I'm Kappy, and remember, there are never too many cooks in the kitchen.